on Startup Report is Jerry Banfield, who is an online personality slash teacher slash guru, and I'm excited to dig into what is a very interesting career trajectory. So, can you start by introducing yourself and then kind of giving an overview of your journey?
I would love to, Joe. Thanks for having me on here. I'm Jerry Banfield. Most recently, I've started the Jerry Banfield Show in person in St. Petersburg, Florida, which takes all that I've done online and brings it into the community for an in person experience, as we can see the need for that after the last few months. I started out, actually, the first thing I did online was in 2004 in college, trying to make money. I got into an MLM program
Hmm.
and some survey website, and I thought, this is a scam. You can't make money online.
Hmm.
Then, when I was in graduate school in 2011, I made a YouTube channel just to play around and make stupid videos for my friends. And I started my first website, and it's went crazy from there.
Yeah, and to give a little context, I think you have something like 290,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube to your channel, and then way up from there, over 2 million people that follow you on Facebook. So some pretty impressive numbers. I also know you had a very successful stint with some coursework, doing some courses at Udemy. So let's kind of run through the products. So which one did you start with? You got into courses a little bit further down the road. So kind of how did you start online, and how did you get your early success, and then where did it go from there?
I started out online making a website on video game addiction. That was the first real, let's make a business out of this, let's try and help people. I was struggling with that myself. I looked around, I realized there's nothing good online on video game addiction. So I made a website and basically pulled everything from everywhere else together and put it on my website, plus my experience. In the process of trying to get people to come to my website, I made ads, I made Facebook page, and I realized this kind of stinks. It's hard
Hmm.
to get your business out there. I got to know some people locally and they were complaining about the same things. Meanwhile, I had a business online that was doing nothing but losing money.
Hmm.
And I saw, if I can help other people promote their businesses, I'll be able to have my business and I won't have to do any real job, so to speak.
Hmm. So that was the next phase. So you stopped the video game addiction business, or it kind of rolled for a little while, but then your actual revenue came from helping other people promote their businesses initially.
Yes, the video game addiction quickly came into me just giving that up, playing more video games than ever. And how the first thing that really worked good was to find Facebook ads that were poorly done,
Mhm.
message the page and say, hey, I'll help you do better Facebook ads. And that started making me money in a first real business that I had. And that was in 2012.
And did you do that as just a straight fee for service, or were you trying to tap into getting a percentage of the success? How did you build that out?
I did a couple of different business models. One, I did a pay per likes model,
Hmm.
which my specialty was I guaranteed all the likes would come from Facebook ads themselves. So unlike something like Fiverr, where you get bots, you could see that it actually came from Facebook ads.
Hmm.
And I had a system where get people to like a page for 1 cent each with an ad, and then I'd charge, 5 or 10 cents a like, and have fixed packages. And I also did, pay 100 to several hundred, and I'll make an ad campaign.
So nice margins there. So
Yes.
what kind of would you say was your at that time, and was your secret sauce in getting people to respond to your ads so you could get that cost per like down? And then did that eventually change and get harder to do?
Yes, my secret sauce is I targeted worldwide. I saw a like is a like. So I just targeted worldwide. The costs were cheaper and I'd make the ad generic so people would hit like on it.
Got it. Got it. And then how much did you have to keep up on the Facebook algorithms, and were you tuned into that as you were doing this and adjusting all the time?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was adjusting all the time. I actually sabotaged myself when I made a YouTube video trying to get more clients, a live stream, and I showed everybody exactly how I did it. And after that, nobody that saw that wanted to hire me to
Ah,
pay for like anymore. They're like, I'll do that myself.
yeah. It's the nature of the beast sometimes. So then where do things go from there? When did the courses and teaching come into play?
Well, the nice thing with doing that YouTube video, it killed my existing business, but it gave me a new one. People said, "This is such good information. Nobody had ever shared that before somehow." And they said, "Where's your online course? I want to buy it." I said, "I don't have one. Where do you teach courses online?" And in 2014, I found Udemy right when it was still brand new. There was no good course on Facebook ads in 2014 on Udemy. And I went all in and I said, I'm going to make the best Facebook ads course, ads and marketing course on Udemy to share all that I'd learned over the last 2 years.
And can you share a little bit about the numbers behind Udemy? What did you put into making a course, and how did you have to advertise it yourself? And then what kind of money can you make off a course on Udemy?
When I first started, there wasn't a lot going on. It was still a pretty new website. I spent one whole day, like 12 hours, and did nothing but make a course. I made a 3-hour Facebook ads course, uploaded it, and got nothing. Maybe 2 sales for maybe $100. And one of them was to a client to give them that off their campaign. So I only really got 1 sale in the first 5 months. I got so frustrated. I'm like, this is stupid. I want people to actually enjoy my course. I put a free coupon out on Facebook and ran ads for it. And that got people to enroll. And then it got reviews, then it got minutes watched. Then Udemy saw, oh, this is a good course. Then they featured it in their deals and it started. After that, it made 1,000 in July 2014. And then the course went on to make over 100,000 in the next few years.
Not bad. Yeah.
But it wouldn't have went anywhere if I hadn't given it away for free out of frustration to begin with.
Which now is somewhat common strategy, right? So it sounds like a lot of the things that you did were, you were able to get in front of things, right? You were able to say, you've said a couple of times that you didn't see anything else like this, and you were the first one. And now you can't turn around on the internet without seeing a Facebook marketing course, right?
Yes.
But yet you got to be in there and got that first mover advantage. So did that shape your strategy then to talk about, and even now with the move you made offline, did that teach you or train you or guide you to start trying to be ahead of the curve to get those same opportunities to be first in?
Yes, that's what I'm always looking for is if you look at things like a wave, where's the crest of the wave? Where's the peak, the best opportunities? And that's what's brought me offline recently. I see there's online saturated now. Offline is kind of getting neglected.
Yeah. That certainly is a new frontier to use online and a lot of the same tactics that work for getting an online audience to see how those will translate to a local audience. One of the things we look at when we're building the Catalyst as a social news platform is how many things are hard to do at a local level on what I call big social. We're looking at, we already host a few podcasts with some local politicians and things like that. But eventually I'd love to have almost a mini YouTube type of environment, because if I've got a local foodie show or I'm a local artist who is filming their presence, it feels like the idea of building that on a big social media platform is kind of daunting. Those are really made for big national audiences. You can do a cooking show, but it's less effective to do, or a restaurant review show, but it's less effective to do that when you're trying to do all St. Pete restaurants. And so, we're trying to build that local platform that is a more natural fit for building local audiences. And so you're kind of doing that experiment too, trying to find the way through the national platforms to get that local audience. And what are the early indications of how well that's going to work?
Yes, it's an interesting adventure. And so far, I got 15 people for my very first show to come out, which I tried this a couple of times and nobody showed up before.
Sure.
And what I'm seeing is direct messages are almost the only thing that's working. Like, I put things on Facebook, I put events up, I do stories, I do live streams, and almost the only thing that's working is Facebook messages and text messages, phone calls, and in-person meetings to get people to actually show up in person.
So of the 15 people that came, how many would you say were existing? Are you working to try to farm your existing contacts, and then how many of them were new contacts?
Out of the 15 people that came, 2 people were brought by somebody that already knew me. So everybody was there as a result of knowing me directly in person. Some were there from Toastmasters, some were there from AA, and one was there who'd actually followed me online and came to one of my meetups a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
So really, there was only one person who met me because of my online stuff. Everybody else was there from essentially local networking.
Interesting. Okay, so I guess the answer is going to be some sort of hybrid. You really at this point, until the recipe hasn't been discovered yet to do local completely online, you've got to got to mix and match your strategies.
Yes, it seems there's so much going on locally that to get people to actually show up, somebody said you had to spend like 10,000 in ads online locally just to do a free event. And to me, it seems like going back to the basics, be with somebody in person, talk to people on the phone. That if someone's going to come out locally, they need to know you or be networked.
So the other thing that strikes me about your mindset is that you're not afraid to pivot. You're not afraid to go back to the beginning. You talk as sort of energetically about 15 people showing up to a local meeting as you do about selling $100,000 worth of a course online, right? And
Yes.
so I think that's a key to sort of staying happy in the grind and knowing that the game is you find one way that works, but it's only going to work for a little while because to your point, the minute people see how you do it, they can copy it, and you've got to be ready to jump again. Is that a big part of your mindset?
Yes, especially online, things don't last that long. You can get the top course for a while, and before you know it, there's somebody else that's got that top spot, or you get banned from the platform you're on. What I'm finding is relationships are just fantastically valuable,
Hmm.
where I actually know somebody and we've worked together over a period of time. Without that relationship, there's so many people to follow and so many things online. People come and go really quickly most of the time. There's only maybe a small percentage, maybe less than 1% that really kind of care about me. And almost everybody else is just kind of transactional.
Interesting. And that's also something I found fascinating because the way you present yourself online, you're going to get. And it's funny that they use the word followers, right? Because in all the we had when I had a marketing firm, we had for a whole year an MLM group that was doing insanely well. I think they're on 4 million a month or something like that. They were making. They'd have these events, and they would literally internally refer to them as revivals, and they were all around business, and they weren't really per se preaching anything, any belief system beyond just the mindset for the business. But I think it sort of pressed a lot of the same buttons in the people that got into it. It was a group to belong to. There was sort of a system to follow, um, and there was just a mix of value that people got out of it, both emotional and technical knowledge, and emotional fulfillment, companionship. Is something to be part of, and then the technical knowledge and the potential career aspects of it as well. So do you sense that when you have your online presence and the way people reflect back your content to you, do you feel like it oftentimes goes beyond just the technical knowledge?
Most of the time, it doesn't. Most of the time, people are there for the technical knowledge. And I find there's so much power in person to actually be in the same space with somebody. I've noticed, for example, in my AA meetings, that when you do them on Zoom, there's not the same effect that when you actually do it in a room full of people. And
Hmm,
that's what got me to stop focusing online and get offline, is I'm seeing I'm missing the majority of potential power in my business. When I put all this content online, it's amazing. People might remember me, but it's so much technical. They're there to learn a specific thing. Or even if they watch something and they're inspired by it, like I did gaming live streaming for years, people would come back and they'd say hi, but they would very easily go watch somebody else's stream just the same. Like there's not a very strong emotional attachment, and it's often not two ways. Like I don't know them.
right. Interesting. So I guess then the question remains: is are these qualities that make the in person? Which aspect? I mean, certainly, I believe some of them are, but which pieces of this, the qualities that make in person more effective right now, are sort of eternal, or which of them are transitional, right? Because um, will our kids feel that same, will they know what they're missing if the bulk of their interactions are online only and they don't have the previous in person to compare about? And that's a big key to innovation, right? Is one knowing how much of it is just how you feel in the transition, knowing that you grew up as this in person was the norm, and now you're facing something that's different and seems lesser. Whereas our kids, especially now in the pandemic, they're mainly communicating online, and maybe it won't affect them. And so to innovate and get in front of them to have that understanding, that's a tricky one that remains to be answered. So the other question, when you move to offline, is scale, right? So scale is when it's one thing to get 300,000 followers on for your videos on YouTube, That's basically all of St. Pete, right? They'd
Yeah.
have to all follow you. And so, if people are used to paying, $99 for a course, or now sometimes free, and there's so much information available, how do you make the financials work of scaling down into a place where, 15, 20, even 50 or 100 people are your addressable audience for your courses here?
In terms of my business, I'm grateful I've got the chance to share everything I do in person online,
Hmm.
which means I keep getting ad revenue. I keep getting even people do donations. I keep making money just by sharing the results of my in person content, which is somewhat unique to me since I've got all that following already. Whereas if I didn't have any following at all, just starting out and doing something locally, I think it's actually much easier than doing it online. When I started online, I don't think I made a profit for the first year because keep spending money and spending money and spending money, and I'd make a little bit, but it took at least a year before it made up for what I'd spent
Hmm.
web between things like web hosting. Whereas locally, almost anyone could do exactly what I did and have people show up. If you can partner with a venue, especially where you can just give a percentage. That we had a workshop on Sunday and 7 people came out and paid $20 each, $140 total there, just starting something off brand new off of people we knew. Like anybody could do that. I think it's actually a lot harder for most people to try and go online and make consistent income without essentially just having an online job. You can go on Upwork and apply for a job. My wife's done great for that. She's on Upwork. She's actually got a full-time work at home income just by applying to jobs online. If you want to apply to jobs, that's pretty easy and straightforward. If you want to get fancy and sell courses and do a podcast, actually making it profitable can be pretty challenging.
Hmm. And so knowing all that, uh, and this is one of those weird hypotheticals. So, knowing that the first year you weren't profitable, and then you became profitable, and you've had a bit of a roller coaster, up and down financially, and now you're again back with a cool new idea, but starting back at 7 people, and working your way up to wherever you'll end up when we talk next, in a year from now. Uh, so, I mean, it kind of answers this in that you are doing it, but would you do it all again? Would you go, and do this online journey that you've done, and ultimately abandon it to try the offline stuff?
That's a great question, Joe. If I didn't have any followers or if let's say I hadn't used social media at all to this point, I would not start. I would focus totally on doing stuff in person. In fact, with all these followers, I feel some obligation to continue creating content because I've set this expectation that I'm going to keep giving you content. And I see a lot of people I know locally, they feel obligated to get on social media even they don't like it.
Mhm.
Like my hypnotherapist, she does good sessions in person, Michelle Butler, and she does great sessions in person and she feels obligated to use social media, but she doesn't really like it. I'm like, well, why bother? Like just stick to text messages and hang out with people in person and phone calls.
So and that brings you back to the balance of what works versus what makes you happy, because to some extent, if someone's looking for a hypnotherapist, then you don't, and the most likely way, or a likely way they'll find you if you do it right, is online. And if you don't make a good journey for them to make it easy to find you, to connect with you and see what you're about, and then ultimately use you, then you are kind of potentially leaving something on the table. But at the same time, at what cost? Is it worth it? And can you put more resources into word of mouth, or things like that? So it's a tricky balance.
Yes, and I found her online. I found her, but the good news is she didn't have to do a lot. She had a basic website and a Google Maps listing, and that's all most local businesses really need to get found, and maybe a Facebook page, but you don't even need to put much content on it either.
So, and this is again one of those just sort of general positioning questions, but given that you have this audience that you feel, you said obligated to keep putting content out for. You mentioned that most people just follow the content and not the person. When I asked you earlier, so if you were to look at the successes that you have had, how would you divvy up the reasons why people engaged with you between your personality and your salesmanship versus just strictly the content?
Man, that's another good one, Joe. The main reason people engaged with me is I have kept it real. I often would do lower quality videos, especially when I started, not having very good lighting, just like a red curtain behind me. And people that have most engaged with me have appreciated my authenticity, talking about my problems and my challenges instead of what a lot of what you see online is people looking pretty. They've got this professionally produced course. You don't really get to see the ugly side or the struggling side of them. But the main reason people actually paid me money is from Google organic search. When people are looking for something, for example, they want more Facebook ads training, they search for a Facebook ads course. And when I was on Udemy, my course would be the first one to come up. And that's the main reason people paid me. But what I did is I've put a lot of things together well. Like I'd get people on Udemy, bring them over to YouTube, bring them on YouTube over to Facebook.
Mm,
And from there, out of millions of followers, there's only a few thousand that are, I mean, a few thousand's good, but
that's good.
there's a few thousand that kind of really care and follow what I do.
And those are the ones that are buying the content and engaging financially, ideally.
Yes, most of them bought a course at some point in the past, is how they kind of found me through Google organic search or YouTube search. That's the main discovery method. I also ran a lot of Facebook ads and like a billion Facebook ads. And a very small percentage of people there somehow started watching stuff and came to follow closely.
So just without thinking about it, is Facebook your friend or your enemy?
Friend.
Is your friend.
It
So you have a
it
good
helps me get
relationship
out
with
there.
Facebook.
Yes, Facebook and YouTube have been very tolerant of my content over the years. From 2005 when I joined and used it to just find girlfriends by adding random girls as friends. I sent 10,000 messages on Facebook trying to solicit business in the first year or two. Facebook's been very tolerant.
And same question for you to me.
Well, Udemy chose the path of intolerance. I was one of the top 10 instructors on Udemy. I had a massive presence and following, and Udemy went through a dark time. They got rid of their CEO. They changed the pricing policy and aggravated all their instructors. And a bunch of instructors left, and they just kicked me out during that time for kind of arbitrary reasons. Like I was making sure I wasn't violating any policies. I was making thousands of dollars a day. I mean, I knew the policies back and forth, and they just decided, you need to go because it's their website. They can do whatever they want. And I've seen most of these big websites, that's what they do. If for example, have friends, they were on Fiverr. They had thousands of sales on Fiverr, tens of thousands of dollars. And one person complained that they had got their email address and taken them off of Fiverr, and they immediately banned their whole profile for one single complaint. And that's one of the big dark sides is
Yeah.
you can work hard to build a profile online, and one thing can take your whole profile down easily.
And on YouTube, that's being demonetized. In SEO, that's algorithm changes that
Yes.
that penalize you, something you've done and worked well. I mean, I think there was even a time when Facebook started devaluing likes that were not in the same country, right? And if you had a local business that had 6,000 likes from Bangladesh, that they would start to devalue those. And I think as they tightened up, the real problem came when they tightened up the algorithm such that only a small percentage of the people that were your followers were getting to see your content because they wanted you to pay for the additional exposure. And if 90% of your followers were not actually your potential customers, then you ended up what free exposure you did get was to non-customers or non-potential customers. So that ended up being a real killer for that. I think that strategy and gaining followers.
Yes. And it's the algorithm is designed for engagement. These websites all care that you are giving them your attention. And if it's purchasing, they want your money. With Facebook and YouTube, what they really care about is that you're there interacting on the website. And the algorithm is designed, if you kind of fail that little initial test round when it goes out to a few people, they don't hardly show it to anyone else because they're prioritizing essentially sensational content is what they care about. When you see something on there and you get all upset and you comment and you share it with somebody, Facebook says, "Ooh, that's really good," because it really got that person to
Right.
interact with it.
And then, which is more apt to happen with a negative reaction than a positive reaction. So
Yes.
people are inspired to act more when they feel enraged than if they just feel pleased or like something, which it doesn't, if that weren't human nature, then perhaps the algorithm wouldn't have such negative tendencies, but it is. So,
Yes.
kind of the last thing I want to, I am also fascinated again with your resiliency. You obviously spend a lot of time on self awareness through the different things you're involved in. You mentioned AA, you mentioned the hypnotherapist, and the books that you're reading. So, what's sort of the process, when you go up to get those to 2 million followers on Facebook, and you have that sort of, and you still do, but you're transitioning. Is there any kind of that sense of obligation? Is that tinged with a sense of loss or a sense of not wanting to give that up? Lest having to climb the mountain to get it back again, or are you totally at peace with starting something new and going back to 5,000 followers, and that doesn't really phase you?
In terms of the online content, I wouldn't bother putting anything online if had to start building followers over again, because it's just you do so much, and the really most of the people that care about you are already your friends on Facebook.
Mhm.
And in terms of what I've got now, I am grateful that people want to keep having my content, and I want to take that in-person experience and show that online to help bring the local movement more around the world, like to show people I'm doing local events, we're interacting in person.
So then, is your mindset that this will become a new knowledge you can bring back online, or you obviously we met because I bought some of your studio equipment, so you're moving now and doing your things on a phone, so you're going from a lighted studio to a phone. You are talking about the specific content that some of your folks aren't used to and may not be able to get their hooks into. So if you start to feel a decline, or when you start to feel a decline in the interaction and the feedback and the likes per video and the watches per video and things like that, do you think that you're just sort of hibernating until you get this local knowledge down, and you're going to come back online with a vengeance and say, here's how you win local? Or are you just literally letting it go?
Oh, I'm letting online go mentally, and that's been such a relief because for years I've been obsessed with how many likes am I getting? How many followers am I getting? How much money am I making? What's my ad rate per video? And often I would think a video wasn't good because I'd put it up and two-thirds of people would dislike it. What I found talking to people locally is, for example, I talked to one of the guys that came to the show about a video I made, and he's like, "That was a great video. Really got me thinking. That's what people need to hear." And I'm like, "Really?" Because
Hmm.
if I would have just seen that without your feedback based on the comments, I would have thought, never put a video up like that again. But what I'm doing now is my mental focus is on the local, and whatever happens online is secondary. I'm intending to get it set up so I can live stream my events on Facebook and YouTube, because live streaming and short 15-second story vertical videos. That's what's really hot right now in terms of just purely online marketing. Like direct messages are number one in terms of customers. So I'm getting that content out, but I've also let go. Like it doesn't matter how many likes it gets or how many views it gets, because the main thing is to show up with people in person and just share it with the people who might want to see it. And I've been through so many ups and downs online. I've had points where my content was just going crazy, and it was a pain in lots of ways. You get messages and offers and people wanting things. And I'm glad to it's nice to not be judging how well I'm doing by how many likes I'm getting or how many views I'm getting.
And really, I think therein lies one of the key sort of differences, is that when you give a talk online or when you give a talk in person or give a presentation in person, and you got 100 people there or 200 people there, and 10 people come up afterwards to line up to talk to you, they're not doing that to tell you you sucked, right? They're doing
Yes.
that to tell you how much it meant to them and ask you questions and to engage with you in a positive way. In person, the people who didn't like it simply just walk out the back door and go home, right?
Yes.
Go to online, you put out a piece of content, and 200,000 or 100,000 people, the people who bother to leave a comment are just as likely to say something negative as they are something positive. And so it's just, it's an unfortunate, you wonder if it's just what people think and the anonymity, or the detached piece of it. And there's a million theories as to why. But from, when it comes down to it, you're going to feel a lot more positive and have a lot more positive interaction when you do something in person than when you throw it out to the anonymous internet.
Yes, and a lot of the people who really like content online won't actually comment. You won't even realize until you do something that kind of draws them out. For example, I've had lots of people that love my stuff on YouTube and they won't comment for 100 videos. They'll just watch them. They won't even like it lots of times. And then a certain video will really get them and they'll be like, man, I've watched all your videos for the last 6 months or whatever. But up until then, there's just no positive reinforcement at all.
Yeah.
The in person, that positive reinforcement and feedback's really nice.
I guess at the end of the day, the one thing it brings us back to is celebrating how the internet has democratized content that, Jerry, who lives down the road from me in St. Pete, can go and reach 300,000 people or 2 million people on Facebook and put themselves out there and get positive financial and professional and emotional success from that and just that access to each other. So hopefully we'll get to a place where as the internet in a weird way gets smaller, which it ultimately will, that different ways to know who's at the other end of the insult and whatnot will turn us back more to the same checks and balances that keep us from being as rude in person. At least one can hope. So what's next then? You've got a few more. You've got the show going. We didn't really dig into that. Can you just tell the format of the show?
Yes, the format of the show, and this is something that's kept coming up inside. I actually found it difficult to get started because, well, my online business is working so good. I know I can make plenty of money if I just go spend a few hours every day filming in my studio.
Mm-hmm.
I just got so tired of going into my own studio. Like, I want to be with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this interview with you is so much more fun than doing it on Zoom at home. And that's how the show got started. And the format of the show is similar to when I talked about my business, how I realized, oh, the people around me are struggling with this also. I see that a lot of people in the community want to do in person events.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not want to do them all the time, but maybe they have a stand up comedy routine they really want to try, or they want to do inspirational speaking, but they're not up for quitting their job and making this the main thing. But my show makes a platform for other people to just come in and I let them take over the whole show, kind of like Saturday Night Live, where I introduce them, they do the show. The show's an hour long right now. If I've got a guest, I'll introduce them. They'll do 45, 50 minutes on the show, and then I'll come on at the end and say, thank you very much. Here's what we're doing on the next shows. And that is giving people the chance, like my hypnotherapist, she's been wanting to do workshops, but she hasn't wanted to go figure out a venue and then try and sell it and figure out how to price it. So my show keeps it simple. It's $20 to come to the show. And when I'm on it, I just talk the whole time, but then I promote the other guests and shows that are going to be on. And I've got two venues right now, Suncoast Fitness
Mm-hmm.
and Awakening Wellness Center, that have given me great arrangements to, like, financially to use the venue.
Mm-hmm.
I promote the venue and promote them and get people to show up, and they benefit. Everybody all benefits. The first show I did was explaining how I got to do the show, and people really enjoyed it so much that being online for so long, I've been used to making all this self-deprecating humor because you get so many negative comments, just tens of thousands of negative comments over the years. And nobody laughed at that in the in-person show.
Hmm.
And I realized, like, they're enjoying this so much they didn't even understand why I'd make a joke about it being bad. Like,
Interesting.
that's cool. And the guy at the gym gave me the best feedback. He said, man, when everybody came into your show, when they first showed up, because it's in Suncoast Fitness, which is a gym, he's like, they're looking a little anxious, a little nervous. He's like, everybody, when they left, looked really relaxed and happy.
That's
I'm
great.
like, that's what the show's about. To bring all that stuff, to give you one place where you can just go experience all the creative talent in St. Pete. And then I do my show.
And the URL is jerrybanfield.com/show, correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I've enjoyed the conversation. It's just a really, really interesting journey, and love the hustle, love the ingenuity, love the pivoting, love the mindset. It's you're making a fun ride for yourself, and wish you a continued success.
Well, Joe, thank you very much for having me on your show here. I'm so grateful we got connected.